Switching gears, Eli Lilly surging almost 6%. It led the S&P 500 today. Their obesity pill cleared yet another late-stage trial. Patients with type 2 diabetes and obesity losing an average 10.5% of their body weight after 72 weeks is on the highest dose. For more on what may come next, Citi Research Managing Director Geoff Meacham joining us now. Geoff, great to have you on the show. What did these results mean for Lilly?
Awesome. Thanks for having me, Brian. So the results here are de-risking from the standpoint of this is the third trial. They're going to file based on these data. There have been 5,000 patients that have been treated. More than that, safety, tolerability looks good, and the weight loss looks good. So it's about to be a new option, for obesity and for diabetic patients that I think is pretty compelling.
The competition out there is fierce. There's a lot of different companies making these medications. A lot of people don't like needles. So how important is that pill version of this GLP-1 weight loss drug?
It's super important, but it's not exactly the end-all, be-all. I would say all the physician calls that we've done, endocrinologists, et cetera, there's still a place, I think, for injectables, but maybe not a dominating place. I'd probably call it 60-40 before everything settles out when this drug becomes available broadly, and the full data kind of, all play out. But I do think that oral administration, though, I think is going to be super important, maybe for those obese patients that are, more overweight rather than obese, and maybe it's more, temporary, not, sort of chronic use.
Geoff, Eli Lilly was a monster into last fall. Everybody was talking about it. We talked about it on a daily basis of this show. I think it was September of last year the stock made an all-time high. Since then, despite the fact that the broader market's done well, it has not participated, despite days like today. I think valuation is finally catching up at close to 25 times next year's numbers, which even coming down is historically rich. How important is valuation here?
It's a great question. I mean, valuation, I think, was a big problem previously when we're talking about, 50 multiple on the stock. Now, though, you're totally right, though, Guy. It's 20 plus. But I think when you look at the next, say 12 to 24 months, there really is no better growth story in healthcare, in my opinion. I think a lot of the pressure on the stock over the past, call it, year or so has really been fears, A, it's been over-owned, and B, been fears of policy changes. And as that kind of comes to a conclusion, I think this stock is going to be much more safer to own and, again, the best grower in the space.
Hey, Geoff, it's Courtney here. With this most recent trial, I'm curious if the side effects are any of a concern, if any, because I know with their most recent trial, I think there was something like 10% of participants who actually dropped out of the trial because of the side effects of this. Is that a concern, and why was it maybe more looked at the last trial than it is this one?
Yeah, it's a good question, Courtney. I mean, so overall, the 10% discontinuation rate, from 3 separate trials and, again, over 5,000 patients, I think that's pretty compelling from a market perspective. It's not really, there haven't been any onerous, safety, tolerability events. Guy mentioned all the competition, and I get that, but it's just hard. It's hard to show this kind of weight loss and then also this type of tolerability profile as well. So I think it raises the bar on Novo and other competitors. But there's nothing that, in the real world that I would think that would be problematic here. With orforglipron, there certainly hasn't been a lot that's been concerning on tirzepatide, meaning Zepbound or Mounjaro in the real world from a tolerability context.
No, but also there is some data that suggests, Geoff, that, over time, people regain the weight. They might lose muscle mass. What are the risks here?
Yeah, so I think the one thing to talk about is orforglipron is an oral drug that could be used, mostly it could be a consumer-oriented drug, right? So patients on for 3 months or 6 months lose a little bit of weight ahead of an event, a wedding, a beach trip, you name it. But it also could be a drug after a patient loses weight from the injectables as a maintenance therapy. And so that maintenance indication, we won't know about that until first quarter of next year when data mature. But that's the angle that I think would really drive a ton of sales and value if people are on this drug after they use an injectable drug, for years, just to maintain a lower weight. But you're absolutely right that when a patient goes off these drugs, they gain the weight back eventually. Maybe it's a year, maybe it's a year and a half, but it usually happens.